Welcome to our final staff CLPL session for Children's Mental Health Week. My name is Fiona White and I'm the Health and Wellbeing Development Officer, and I'm going to hand over straight away to Karina Gethins from the HomeLink team.
Hi everyone. I can't see anybody because I'm sharing my screen, which is all a little bit strange, but I have my colleague Joy Ray on the call as well, who will keep an eye on the chat. So if there's any questions or comments as we go through, please feel free to put them there. I think there's probably too many people to try and open up to discussion. However, I think we'll have time at the end to look at some of the comments and questions that are in the chat function. So my name's Karina. I'm a HomeLink worker in Williamsburgh Primary and Mary Russell School. I'm also a sleep counsellor, and I have a lead role in Renfrewshire for Sleep Scotland. And I have extra time in my working week to do that. So part of the job that I do in my lead role, I coordinate a working group of sleep counsellors. As a group of sleep counsellors, we support families one-to-one out in their homes, but also over the phone and in schools to improve their sleep. We initially do an assessment. We might take a sleep history and find out lots of things about what's going on in the house, their diet, all that sort of stuff. And then ultimately we come up with a plan to improve their sleep so they can change their behaviours and their patterns. And we follow up. We keep contact with the family to make sure that the improvements are ongoing. I don't know if Joy, do you want to say hello and introduce yourself as well?
Hi, I'll say hello, although nobody will be able to see me because for some reason my video isn't working today. Even put my lipstick on, but never mind. So I've been a sleep counsellor for about 8 years now and have, as Karina said, done a lot of similar work. We work constantly with families. As I'm sure you'll all be aware, there's big problems with sleep for various reasons that we'll be going into today. So we're part of a dream team, the dream team we call ourselves in Renfrewshire. And I will be keeping a lookout for any questions that will be coming up during the meeting, and I'll post some evaluation and some links to resources that we have. Thanks.
Perfect, thanks Joy. So another part of my role is delivering sessions like this. I deliver these sessions to staff and to parents. This is quite a big one, I think. I'm not sure how many people are on this call, but this morning I did a session similar, but with only 2 parents who turned up, which is the nature of inviting parents into school, I think. But it was really informal and personal, and they were able to go into more detail about their own situations. So this session today, I think because we've got a lot of people on the call from sort of different areas, I think right from early years right through to secondary, and I think some social work colleagues as well. I've tried to keep it very general, and I suppose so that it's as relevant as it can be to everybody. And as we said at the start, I've got an evaluation that I would really appreciate that you could fill out at the end to provide us with feedback. Okay, there is a resource called Sound Sleep. This presentation is part of it, and it's a resource that's been developed by Sleep Scotland, and it follows curriculum guidelines. It has 3 lessons all the way from, I think, P1 all the way through to secondary. And the aim is to encourage pupils to take responsibility for their health and well-being by understanding the role and value of healthy sleep. Just put all these out at once. The lessons, they teach pupils what sleep is, why it's important for their physical and emotional well-being, why teenagers need 8 to 10 hours and younger children 9 to 11 hours of sleep per night. It talks about what the body clock is and how it relates to sleep, and what you can do to get a good night's sleep, which is similar to, I suppose, the information that's going to be coming up to date in this presentation. I'm sure you all know somebody or lots of people probably in your classes or families that you work with who are impacted by a lack of sleep and could be doing with some support. So I'm hoping that this input today will help increase knowledge and enable you to provide accurate information to encourage children, young people, parents, carers to make the changes that's required to improve sleep. Okay, so what is sleep? It's a natural behaviour. We all do it. You're not going to go more than 24 hours really without feeling the need to sleep. It's a reversible state of reduced awareness to your surroundings and your environment, and it's dynamic. There's a lot going on. So you might have heard that sleep like a log. Actually, you don't switch off completely when you're sleeping. There's a lot happening.
Karina, your slides aren't moving on. They're not in presenter view, just in case there's a wee delay from you to
How do I do that?
Just go to slideshow. And then from current slide.
Slideshow from current slide. There. Is that it now?
It's still not going into presenter view, not quite sure why, but we can see the current slide you're on, so that's...
But will that mean that each time I'll have to go into that
possibly
current slide? Yeah.
If you click on enable editing.
Click
on enable editing.
Where's that?
It's just at the top of your, where the yellow bar is, where it says protected view.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That might be why it's not.
It stopped sharing completely.
Right, just go back into it now and hopefully that should be all good.
Okay. Slideshow. Is that it now?
Brilliant, that's us.
Good, good. I'm not great with technology. I'm a face-to-face person normally, so the only thing that makes me stress out is the technology side of it. So I'm glad we've resolved that. So there's a lot going on, and lack of sleep affects our emotional well-being. So research shows that if you are suffering from a lack of sleep, you're more likely to suffer from depression, anxiety, and other mental health problems. And it affects your physical health. So the research also shows that if you have a problem with sleep, you're not getting enough sleep, then you're more likely to suffer from obesity, diabetes, and it contributes to other conditions later in life. So we all know that exercise and healthy eating are required to keep us healthy. The third thing we need is sleep, and I think it's just as important. So how do you feel when you don't get enough sleep? This might be one for the chat box, if anyone wants to put up a couple of suggestions. We're actually the only species who alter our sleep. Animals have natural rhythms as well, but I think because of our 24/7 lifestyle and because of screens, technology and everything else, our busy lives, we tend to alter our sleep. I don't know if anyone put anything up there, Fiona?
We've got a few things up there.
Oh, do you want us to shout them out?
Sore head, normal for now. Somebody's got a 5-week-old and a 3-year-old.
Yeah, of course.
Full of nonsense. I like that one. That's me usually. Yeah, we've got quite a few groggy, few crabbits. I think we can all relate.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's definitely not an exhaustive list, and I've got 2 young children as well, and I know how they are when they don't get enough sleep. So if you've got a classroom with half your kids who aren't getting enough sleep, then that just makes your job so much more difficult. So the ones we've got here, you can see feeling worn out, no energy, no motivation, struggling to stay awake when it's quiet, finding it hard to concentrate, feeling clumsy or accident prone, feeling short-tempered, having no patience or being grumpy. I think we can recognise that one. Impulsive, irrational or bad behaviour, being stronger and unable to control your emotions as well, and low mood, which links back with what we said before about people who have lack of sleep, who are more likely to suffer from anxiety and stress. And actually in children, lack of sleep can present as hyperactivity as opposed to that sort of lethargic feeling that we sometimes get, I think, more commonly in adults. And I think that's important to note as well, because the amount of children who present with, I suppose, ADHD symptoms, it's important to look at their sleep, and often if you can target the sleep and put an intervention in, if they're willing to make changes there, it can make a huge difference in how they present themselves. So what actually happens when you sleep? Loads of stuff happens. Your body and brain are very, very busy. And I think especially in children, the growth hormone is released and they do most of their growing when they're sleeping. So if you're not getting enough sleep, your body's not getting that chance to grow and to develop. Muscle mass is being built and your bone density increases. And there's lots of repair going on, renewal of cells. So even if you're unwell, you know, you feel more sleepy, or if you have a cut, and children often are getting bruises and cuts, and they'll heal quicker if they're getting more sleep. The immune system is strengthened, and there's hormone released to maintain a healthy appetite. So leptin is the hormone that's released during your sleep, which helps you to maintain a healthy appetite then throughout the next day. There's another hormone called ghrelin, which makes us feel more hungry. And probably most of you know that feeling when you are really tired and you just want to reach for the snacks, like the crisps and the sweets and all that stuff. And there's actually a biological reason for that. It's the ghrelin working in your body. And that again links back to people who are sleep deprived, especially over a long period of time. They're more likely to suffer from obesity, diabetes, that sort of thing. During your sleep, your memory is being consolidated and your learning, especially for children, is getting moved from your short-term to your long-term memory. So children who are learning lots and lots of things during the day, if they're not getting enough sleep, they're more likely to not be able to retain the information that they've been given during that day. So sleep is just, I can't even stress enough how important it is, especially to children as they grow and develop. And again, there's that link to sleep with low mood. So sleep deprivation affects the prefrontal cortex, where emotions are rooted. Positive memories are stored in the hippocampus, which is directly affected by sleep deprivation. And negative memories tend to be stored in the amygdala, which is not as severely affected. So that goes some way in explaining why people who haven't had enough sleep are more likely to feel depressed, anxious, all of those things, because they're remembering the negative memories more than they're remembering the positive ones. I think, Joy, this might be one for the chat box as well. Can anyone guess how much sleep a newborn baby needs? My children did not sleep this much. I can't remember them sleeping this much. I can't see the chat, Joy, so you might want to write, shout it out if somebody says.
Nobody has come up with an answer yet.
Okay, oh, it's a hard one, it is. So 14 to 17 hours. I find that hard to believe.
18 hours. Oh, I've got a few coming. 20 hours. Yeah. 14 to 17 hours.
That would be very lucky.
Some of them
just
do.
given the answer away for an infant, 12 to 15. A toddler, 1 to 2 years. Some of the early years staff might know this one.
About a 1 to 2 year old, anybody? 10 hours, 10, 13 hours?
Oh, it's done it in the wrong order.
12 hours? Yeah.
11 to 14 for a toddler, age 1 to 2, and then 10 to 13 hours for a preschooler, age 3 to 5. School age children, primary school age children more specifically, first of all. Any answers? I was about to say any, Joy.
8 to 10 hours.
9 to 11 hours.
8 to 9, yeah. Bang on.
And then there's a shift as they get a bit older and become a teenager. Does anyone want to have a guess at that?
24 hours. No, I'm just saying that.
8 to 10.
11 hours.
A shift by about 2 hours.
They do seem to need a lot.
A young adult, 7 to 9, and adults, 7 to 8 hours. And this is what they need consistently. And obviously everybody's unique. So, you know, some people might need a bit less, some people might need a bit more, but generally speaking, these are the kind of ranges of hours that the different groups would need. And this is a really fun one, and it's an example of an activity that I've done with class in Williamsburg to get them thinking about how many hours sleep they should be getting. They loved this one actually, and to the point that they were saying, what about a whale? What about a shark? What about this and that? And I think they were way off to Google it. So I'm wondering if anyone can guess which of these animals sleeps, first of all, for 2 hours.
Any guesses? A dolphin? Somebody thinks a dolphin? Giraffe? Oh, a few giraffes for 2 hours. Giraffes. I think people are thinking because they stand up, they don't need so much sleep.
Yeah.
A few dolphins and a few giraffes.
Yeah, the giraffe is correct. So they sleep for about 20 minutes at a time. It's actually amazing the way they've sort of evolved, but only for approximately 2 hours in a 24-hour period. What about the 8 hours?
8 hours, any guesses for that? A bat? A few bats coming up. Dolphin for the 8 hours. A couple of dolphins. A bat or a dolphin, it seems to be. Okay, yeah, it's a dolphin. And they're an interesting one as well, because they apparently sleep with half of their brain at a time because they need to keep swimming and they need to be able to come up for air. And also they're quite small, or a lot smaller than the other kind of, I suppose, sea creatures, a lot of them. So they have to look out for predators as well. So they sleep with half their brain at a time, and they swap over, but for a total of about 8 hours. 13 hours, any guesses? Bat, few bat. Everybody's thinking that the cat sleeps the longest, I think. The bat. I know, I've got 2 cats. Bats or a cat? It's got to be one of those. Yeah. So the 13 hours is the cat actually, and they cat nap or they'll sleep for a longer amount of time. 19 hours is the bat, and interestingly, that's because they're nocturnal and they sleep upside down with their claws, and they're able to sleep for longer because they don't have as many predators.
that's just an example of a really interesting activity for children. So why do our children need 9 to 11 or 8 to 10 hours sleep, depending on their age? We covered some of this. It's for growth, repair, renewal, and hormone production. And if they don't get enough sleep each night, they're not allowing their bodies to reach their full potential. It's also for brain maturation and memory consolidation, and we talked about that, the learning aspect of it being really important for the learning that they've had in the day, moving from short-term to long-term memory. And I'm just going to note here as well, because I know that there's a big push on the initiatives that are being, I suppose, through REN 10, like NVR, Liam, and all of these other ones that we know about, Seasons for Growth as well. And Joy and I deliver most of these as well. But I think it's really important to stress that sleep goes hand in hand with that, and to look at the sleep as well as that, because it has such a big knock-on effect to behaviour and also to the environment at home. If you've got a family who are very, very tired, it's obviously going to have an impact on the amount of escalation with behaviours and things like that at home. So what should sleep look like? Again, Joy, I'm wondering whether people think it's A, B, C, or D in the chat.
So we've got one for B. Nice up and down one. Few B's. Oh, I think they're too clever in this. Everybody's going for B.
Yeah, that's probably an easy one. Yeah, we go through several cycles a night where you start off in a light sleep and go into a deeper sleep, then rise to a lighter sleep with brief waking before repeating the cycle. And each cycle is about 90 to 120 minutes, depending. So yeah, well done. So if you were to get your sleep analysed, if you were to go to a sleep clinic, and they would produce a hypnogram, and it would look a bit like this, hopefully. This one shows a young person who slept for a full 9 hours. Never know how many times to press it. There we go. Okay, so you can see that during the non-REM sleep, shown in blue, that even though at times we may be in our deepest sleep, our bodies will be still working hard to release the hormones and renewing and repairing tissue. And the REM sleep, shown in the red there, that's shorter periods, but still part of each cycle. That's, I suppose, when you were more likely to dream. You're more likely to be easily startled and woken up. But that's when our learning is consolidated. And you can see an important point there is that the last part of the night, excuse me, from our sort of 6 to 9 there's a much bigger section of the REM sleep, the rapid eye movement sleep. That's what I should have said. That's what that stands for, rapid eye movement, which is why children need to be consistently having the right amount of sleep each night. So if you don't get a good sleep during the week, but you think, oh, it doesn't matter, I'll catch up at the weekend and I'll have some long lies. It doesn't really work like that. And we should be encouraging consistent routines at night, consistent bedtimes, consistent waking up times as well. Actually, it doesn't matter so much what time they go to bed, because you have to adjust around the rest of the family and what's going on in kids' clubs or whatever. It's more important that they're consistently getting the right amount of hours sleep. So I know in my house, I prefer to get the kids to bed early, but we're up at 6 in the morning. That might not work for everybody, and that's okay. It's just as long as you're getting the right amount of sleep. And sleep counsellors, we work very individualised with the family, where we'll put a routine in place that works for them. Okay, so what helps us sleep and what helps us wake? If anyone's got pets, like a dog in particular, they know when to get up. They often know when you're coming home from work. They often know when it's their dinner time, all of that sort of stuff. But they can't tell the time. They don't go around wearing a watch. So what is it that helps us sleep and wake and to know what's going on? It's our body clock or our circadian rhythm. And this helps you to do or expect to do certain things at certain times of each day, like sleeping and eating. And you can help set your body clock to the right times by following a regular daily routine. Setting your body clock is affected by external factors known as Zeitgebers, such a great word. And that means, am I right in saying, Joy, is it time givers? It's a German word meaning time givers. Yeah. And you get lots of Zeitgebers, and other examples of Zeitgebers are like meals, social interactions, the outside temperature, even exercise and sound. And these all help to set our body clocks. We're designed to want to sleep through the darkest period of 24 hours and be active and alert during the day. And that's the way we're conditioned. And our bodies recognise the changes in light and temperature and react to these signals by making us feel sleepy. The most potent Zeitgeber affecting sleep and wake is light. So the light sends signal to our eyes, which sends a signal to our brain, which releases cortisol, and that lets us know it's time to get up, I suppose. Cortisol is also known as the stress hormone. So if you have higher levels of cortisol because you're feeling stressed or anxious, then you're less likely to be able to get to sleep because your body's telling you that you should still be awake. And it can be a vicious cycle as well, because if you're more anxious, you can't sleep. But if you can't sleep, you become more anxious. So I was at a training course on sleep and trauma. And what was suggested was activities and putting things into the bedtime routine that help to reduce those cortisol levels. So that might be things like massage or relaxing music, or even earlier on in your bedtime routine, it might be things like, I know like a lot of the autistic children, the repetition of tapping or dancing or anything like that earlier on in the routine, anything that's going to bring down those cortisol levels in the evening to help the child or young person, or even yourself, sleep. And in the day, the dark in the night sends a signal to our brain to release a hormone called melatonin. And this is naturally released behind our eyes. And it makes us feel sleepy at night. You can see on this graph here that when we wake up, we get a burst of cortisol. So as soon as you wake up, you might feel groggy, you might feel like, oh, I can't be bothered getting up. But as soon as you're up, you feel much more alert because the cortisol has kicked in. There's a natural dip, you can see in that chart there, there's a natural dip in cortisol in the middle of the day. And that In other countries, they might have a siesta because your body's telling you that it wants to rest. And then before you go to bed, you'll get a burst of melatonin, hopefully, and that's what helps you to get to sleep. It's usually released about half an hour before your normal sleep time. And another reason why it's really important to have a regular sleep pattern so that you can keep your cortisol and your melatonin levels working in the correct way. So how light affects the onset of sleep. Melatonin, you might know this already, but melatonin is production is switched off by blue light, and onset of sleep is delayed. So blue light is the light that we get from technologies, screens, TVs, phones, all of that stuff. And that's becoming more and more of an issue for our children and young people especially. Okay, so the lights from the screens are giving us that feeling of still being awake because they raise the cortisol levels and they reduce the melatonin levels, which is why if you go to your bed at night you've been feeling really, really tired all day, you go to your bed, you start looking at your phone, you start watching something, you all of a sudden don't feel as tired anymore. And it's giving you that false sense of not needing as much sleep as you actually do. And it's the light from the screens that's having an impact and sending a message to our brains that we're still awake. There's a significant shift in adolescence. You saw that from the number of hours required of sleep and the difference between a younger child and a teenager. And there's a shift by about 2 hours. And they need less time. And they shift to falling asleep a bit later. And they even have a shift of waking up after sleep onset increases. They may feel more active in the evening. They might not want to go to bed until later because they're not sleepy. They might find it hard to get to sleep. And they might find it hard to get up in the morning because they haven't slept for long enough. But there's a way to prevent significant disruption to our body clock during this period and to pull your body clock back from a considerable shift. So, how to get a good night's sleep? The burning question. Getting out into natural light for at least 30 minutes as early as possible to boost your cortisol levels if you can, and go for a walk in the morning if and when it's sunny. Avoid too many caffeine-based drinks, especially at night. Some of this seems obvious, but I think it's good to be reminded, and I think even just when we're looking at the young person as a whole, and you know, what are they doing, what are their habits, what are they having to eat and drink, especially before bed, is really important if you're trying to improve sleep. There's actually foods that you can have which naturally increase your melatonin levels. The one that sticks out in my mind is always turkey. You're not going to have a turkey sandwich at night.
Peanut butter.
Peanut butter, Joy, that's a good one. Yeah, and even like a banana on toast or something like that.
Banana has it too. Banana, peanut butter, so good one for nighttime. Yeah.
Find ways of dealing with stress or anxiety. We've talked about that, but I mean, even for young children, getting them to talk about their worries earlier on in the night might work. And again, like, parents are experts in their own children, and what works for one might not work for another. But the key message there is to try and lower that cortisol levels by finding ways of dealing with stress or anxiety. There's lots of good little apps, and I know that Liam recommends like the Hospichill app and things like that that can be used to manage anxiety, and that might work for some children in the evening as well. Avoiding having a nap during the day. I know we talked briefly about the siesta, but actually if you do that, it then has an impact on you being able to get to sleep later. And again, not having long lives at the weekend, which is so difficult. It's so easy to say, and especially for teenagers, you know, and that's why I think it's so important to get them on board and not just work with the family, and especially with younger children, but to get the teenager on board to try and understand why we limit the screens at night, and why it possibly isn't the best idea to lie in bed till 2 in the afternoon at the weekend, instead of having a consistent routine during the week. So in the evening, clearing homework out of the way, having a good meal but not too close to bedtime, and doing any stimulating activities such as exercise, watching TV and playing computer games earlier in the evening. Also, from the learning of that sleep and trauma course, it was quite interesting because everything that we learned about sleep and switching off TVs and having the room dark and all of that stuff may not apply if you have a child who has suffered a lot of trauma. They might be scared in the dark. They might, you know, they might need some repetitive, more active interventions in the evening. And I think just to be mindful of that as well, and incorporating everything again that's going to lower those cortisol levels. The most important hour is the wind down hour. Switching off your TV and your computer, your phone, anything with a screen really. Having a bath maybe, wind down and chill out. They say actually, interestingly, that having a shower can be quite stimulating. So if you don't have a bath at home, it might be better not to have a shower just before bed. But again, we're all unique and different. So what works for one might not work for another. Reading a book or listening to relaxing music. And stick as closely as you can to the same bedtime and getting up times, even at weekends. And trying the relaxation again to help you drift off to sleep. There's lots of aids you can use as well, like special lights. And somebody in my session today was talking about a lamp that they have that projects light onto the ceiling, and you look at the dot, and you set it for 8 minutes or 20 minutes, and you look at the dot, and she was saying it really works. And I think the thing about any techniques that you put in place for children, for families, if they try it once, they go, oh no, that doesn't work for me. You have to really stick with it and try it consistently to get into the routine, to get the full benefit of it. So it's to encourage them to stick with it if it's not working straight away as well. Bedroom, I always think that bedroom looks really boring. But what the point is here is about creating a sleep room. Often we go out to visit families and the bedroom is just like really, really cluttered, full of toys, full of clothes piled up or whatever. And I think if you are doing a sleep intervention and you are trying to improve sleep, even if it's only for a temporary amount of time until that sleep improves, it's to create the sleep room and have it as calm and clutter-free as possible. And keeping the bedroom dark and cool. Seems obvious, but making sure your bed is comfortable. Using subdued lighting. So often as well, when I go out to see families to help with sleep. We talk about that whole thing of having a different approach to during the day activities with the bright lights, the big light on and whatever, to nighttime, and having the cam light, the small light on. And even the way that the parent speaks with their voice is maybe using the cam voice at night, and gradually the child will start to see the difference, and it'll have that impact on their body clock. Removing pets that are nocturnal. I went on a home visit, and the boy had a hamster beside his bed, and it was running on the hamster wheel. So yeah, so it's interesting, and it's knowing what questions to ask when there's a sleep problem as well, because it could be any number of things. It could be something simple that will make a difference, just like that, removing the hamster from the side of the bed. Joy, I'm just wondering at this point if there's anything that you wanted to add from the slides.
I've just added the evaluation to the chat so that people can
put that on.
feel free
Thank you.
to. I just put that on there, and also a couple of resources that we have from Sleep Scotland that people can.
That's great.
Access.
Thanks for doing that.
I'll put them on separately because I might have run them together. I'm not sure.
Okay, if everybody could fill out the evaluation, that would be great. And the links to Sleep Scotland are really helpful as well if you want more information, or if you want to pass information or signpost any families in order for them to get the correct information about sleep. So in summary, consider what goes on during the day. Could anything potentially be affecting sleep? Get a good routine in place for the evening, and make sure you're removing any potential barriers to good sleep. Plan a wind down hour and leave the day behind. Try to have a bedroom that's a sleep room rather than a bed sit, even if you have to change things around every night for the wind down hour. It does help. Yeah, Sleep Scotland has lots of good free resources on their website. There is the sleep support line, which you can signpost families to. It's open Monday to Thursday, 10 till 4, and it's for children 18 months right through to 18 years. And if you are unsure about anything, then even have a word with your home link worker. Some of us are trained as sleep counsellors, but I think there's a lot of good information on the website. And I think, Joy, have you shared some of the links? Is it from Sleep Scotland?
Of links there, yeah. I'll just share that again because I've not done
Brilliant. Thank you.
Maybe have we got time? If anybody's got any questions, they could type them in.
Yep, I'm up for that. Yeah, if you've got any comments or questions, then feel free to type them in. We'll try and answer them as best we can.
While everybody's thinking of a question, I was just going to ask about the referral pathway to get support from you, Karina.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in the first instance, it might be beneficial to speak to your home link worker. And I think most clusters, Joy, tell me if I'm right, have a sleep counsellor. If you're in a nursery, it would be best probably to speak to your health visitor. I think there's quite a few of the health visiting team that are trained in sleep. If it's primary school, secondary school, then yeah, I would speak to the home link worker. It's probably the best way to go. There is some information on the REN10 website as well, but because I'm at the early stages of this lead role, I'm not at the stage yet of taking lots of referrals through the website. That may come, but yeah, keep your eyes open for that as well. I'd be interested to know how many of the schools have the Sound Sleep resource pack. So yeah, if you do have it, let us know, let your home link worker know, and they can pass that on or get in touch with me directly. there any other questions coming up, Joy?
Not so far.
Karina, I found that particularly interesting. Thankfully, my children are now big adults and I don't have to think about their sleep. But certainly thinking about when I was in school, I don't think I would necessarily have asked the question around sleep. How often do you come across situations where sleep ends up being a barrier to attendance, or is that too wide a question to ask
All the
you?
time. All the time, Fiona. Every home visit I go on, even if the referral's not anything to do with sleep, always ask, how's the sleep? How do they settle at night? Is there night wakenings? Is there any specific sleep problems like night terrors and things like that? More often than not, because the families have a lot of complex issues, I suppose, there's a lot going on, that they forget to mention sleep because it doesn't seem as important. However, I really strongly believe that if you can sort the sleep issue, then it may have a knock-on effect to everything else. There's no magic cure. I think with this, the family, the child, the parent, carer, they have to, I suppose, want and be in a position to make a change. Often people aren't if their accommodation isn't correct. And that's why it's important to do a full assessment, I suppose, and make that decision on what comes first. It may be that they're not ready for a sleep intervention yet, that they need help with other things that are going on in their lives. But yeah, I think it's an important question to ask.
I'll be adding the signposting to Sleep Scotland onto the Children and Young Persons signposting resource, and also the parents one that we have too, just to make that a wee bit easier.
Brilliant,
So,
thank you.
Ferguslie Early Learning Centre are asking about how to get a copy of the Sleep Scotland's support.
The resource.
The resource.
Yeah. So I've asked Sleep Scotland how widely I'm allowed to share my own copy of the resource. The answer is very vague, but I think the crux of it was that you can purchase it from them. It's actually not that expensive. And yeah, I think you'll get that information on the website really. But you can contact me separately as well if it's just resources for, is that for a nursery, Joy? Did you say?
For a nursery,
yeah. I know that, who was the lady that took over from you? Gillian Shearer.
Gillian Shearer. Yeah.
She's a trained sleep counsellor. So if you know Gillian Shearer, then she would be the person to contact. If not, you can contact me directly. I'm happy to come out and do sort of support for parents or sessions for staff. But obviously I've only got a small amount of my time dedicated to sleep, so I'd be calling on my other sleep counsellors to help out with that. And I think for early years, the contact would be Gillian.